In the last session of this lesson on stewardship, we did establish that God indeed configured man, designed man, created man as a steward, not as an owner. God's original idea for man was stewardship, not ownership, and that is the divine position to date. It hasn't changed. God's Son is by divine intent and by divine design a manager, not an owner. You are safer as a manager, not an owner. Man is configured to steward. The fallen man by nature, and this fall now takes place. And see, what we are doing here, we are trying to establish God's mind by looking at what the general overview of the scriptures, but getting a very good foundation from Genesis chapter 1 and chapter 2, when God creates man and when God places man in the garden and his idea and expectation. We're going back to the original. Okay? Now, the fallen man by nature seeks to own, not to manage. Okay? The Son of God, Adam before the fall, was a manager. He sought management, not ownership. After the fall, man seeks ownership, not management. He's configured with a mindset that competes with God over God's own estate. Man was managing the estate based on the information given to him by God. Now, after the fall, man governs his life based on the information given to him by Satan in chapter number 3. Because you see, information determines your manner of life. You govern your life based on the information you have exposed yourself to and subjected yourself to. You cannot govern yourself without information. And that's why a child cannot govern themselves, because they have no information. But as they grow, they begin to gather information from the parents, and that information begins to influence their action, their decisions. So information influences decisions, actions, judgments, and so on and so forth. Information. And so the information that God gave to man after creating him was one that was necessary and sufficient for management, for stewardship, not for ownership. The information that Satan brought to man negated the principle of stewardship and instead introduced and propagated the principle of ownership, where man wants to have a stake of what God has, a piece of what God has. And that's our language today, a piece of what God has, a piece of this, a piece of that. Before then, man wanted to live his life to glorify God. After the fall, man wants to live his life for his own glory. So we are busy trying to attain to a particular level that we can have glory. All you are after, my friend, is glory. It's praise. You want men to praise you for this. All right? And we do some stupid things just to seek for glory. You see a young man driving on the road and he is, just doing some thrilling speed to impress some girl. Just some downright stupid thing because you want glory. Okay? So that's what we do. We are after glory. Because you see, we are created to bring glory. But we have the wrong focus. We were created to bring glory to God, not to draw glory to ourselves. So because we are not now giving glory to God, we take it upon ourselves to seek glory. Remember the deception in Genesis chapter 3? Right? That God knows you will be like him. So we want to be like him. If he can receive glory, we too can receive glory. That's it. Stewardship, ladies and gentlemen, is not about you seeking glory. It's about you giving God the glory. So the fallen nature seeks glory. Now, We say that as a son, you have to recover the mindset and attitude of a steward. That's what it means. Being a responsible manager of what belongs to God and has been entrusted to you. Now, stewardship is the mindset of a son. The Bible talks about, Adam, the son of God. At least that's what Luke describes him. Adam, the son of God. When Adam had the right relationship with God, okay, as a son, Adam was a steward of what belongs to God. So stewardship is the mindset of a son. It's a pre-fall mindset. Another one is at the center. In stewardship, you are not at the center. Another one is at the center. Ownership is a mindset of an orphan. When Adam fell from the grace, fell from the place of son, and he became an orphan, he began preserving himself. He began protecting himself. He began fending for himself. He began providing for himself. Now he was the center. Everything is about him. An orphan thinks only about himself. And if you want to know whether you have an orphan mindset, and let me tell you, you can be born and raised up by your father and mother biologically, but you operate with an orphan mindset. Every human being under the sun is born from the position of an orphan as far as relationship with God is concerned. Everyone. You are born with an orphan mindset where you think about yourself, life is about you, all you seek is about you, self-profiling, self-promotion, self-preservation, self-satisfaction, selfish ambitions. It's about you at the center. But when you come to Christ, praise the Lord, you're set free from this, bondage, and you begin to live a life to glorify God. So, while both the son, something I want you to see here, while both the son and the orphan have material resources entrusted to them, very important to understand, both have material resources. God allows them to have material resources, both of them. The man with a son mindset, the man with an orphan mindset. Both of them, God allows them to have resources. And so, while both the son have material resources entrusted to them, the spirit and attitude are fundamentally different. While one is for the glory of God, the other is for self-satisfaction. Right? When one uses what they have to glorify God, to serve God, to be a blessing, the other uses what they have for self-profiling. While one is preoccupied with adding value to others, the other one is preoccupied by adding value to himself. That's quite a significant difference. Stewardship is a position of service and worship, while ownership is a position of self-preservation. Right? Stewardship is a position of service and worship. You serve the Lord, you worship Him. But ownership is about self-preservation. Stewardship is inspired by responsibility. You want to be a responsible human being. Responsibility. While the desire for ownership is inspired by poverty. I submit to you, my friend, we have very few men and women who are free from poverty. Let me tell you. Poverty is not the absence of money. Poverty is not the absence of material things. We have billionaires, trillionaires, I dare you, trillionaires who are poor. Men and women bound by poverty. One of the signs that you're bound by poverty is the fear of tomorrow. You always fear what you have today will get finished. What will you do if it gets finished? You fear. What motivates you is fear of poverty. So you still don't have as far as you are concerned. You are still worried it can get finished. You see, when you come this place of a son of God, you become confident that God is able to keep you. He puts the man in the garden. He said, you can eat all except this one. An orphan will think about this one. If I can have only this one more. An orphan never takes note of what they have. A poor man is never cognizant of what is at his disposal. You never are satisfied with what is at your disposal. What troubles you, what worries you, what bothers you, what motivates you, what drives you is what you don't have. And you are wondering how you can get it so that you can be safe. It's about self-preservation. In my mother tongue, there's a proverb that says that boys don't get choked by the meat they are chewing. Boys are choked by the meat, the piece of meat on the plate. Because as they chew, their eyes are on the next piece of meat. So they are chewing this very, very fast to swallow it very fast so they can take that piece of meat before anyone else takes it. Right? That's in my mother tongue. Boys are not choked by what is in the mouth, the meat, the piece of meat they're chewing. What they're chewing is not what chokes them. Though you think what is choking the boy is what he is eating, not really. What is choking the boy is what is in the plate. Because he was chewing and swallowing this hastily. So he never chewed it enough. Because he was worried someone might take that next piece of meat on the plate. Now that is a poverty mentality. That's why a man has too much. Millions and tens of millions and hundreds of millions or even billions. But he still is after some corruption and some deals. That's why they will still go to steal money meant for treatment of patients and medication of patients. Men who have millions will steal from patients, sick people. You rob money meant to buy their medicine. Why would you do that? So you are greedy. You want to own more. I mean, the debate's going on in my country right now. It's pathetic. Billions of shillings lost. So whoever has them, whether it is this government or the previous government, it's about greed. You want more. What is choking you? It's not what you have. You cannot see what you have. You don't appreciate what you have. You don't celebrate what you have. You want what you don't have. That's the nature, the fallen nature. You are a poor man. With all your billions, you are a poor man with all your millions. I look at you in the face and tell you, you are a poor man with all your millions. You are a poor man with all your billions. And you are a poor man with all your trillions. Because poverty is not the absence of money. Poverty is a mentality. Poverty is an attitude. Poverty is a posture. You are a poor man. That's why you cannot allow others to have. You have to have it yourself. Because you are poor. You think they'll finish for you. You're competing for something more because you cannot enjoy what you have. That's why you want to own. So the desire to own is inspired by poverty. I listened to one billionaire from this country who passed on not long ago. And he was asked what motivates you in life. And he said it head on. He said, nothing motivates me more than the fear of poverty. What a tragedy. It means that man, even with his billions and with his properties and with his vehicles and everything he had, he died a poor man because the greatest motivation, he was a slave of poverty. I refuse to live such a life, a miserable life. Can't enjoy what God has given you. You can't manage well what God has put in your hands. You can't have the pleasure of the much that God has given at your disposal because you are a slave of poverty. Oh yes. I look at all of these magazines written in social media and Forbes and the rest, talking about the richest man in the world. Look at the things these so-called richest men in the world are doing, and you will discover they are all poor men, miserable men, poor, miserable men, slaves of poverty. So they cannot administrate what God has given to them. They cannot multiply it to be a blessing. They cannot be faithful with it to be a blessing. Instead, they oppress the poor. The West oppresses Africa. The East oppresses Africa. Why? Because the East is poor. The West is poor. They are all poor and slaves of poverty. So what do? Oppress Africa. that you can get more from what Africa has. You can take a chunk of what Africa has. You want to own what Africa has. That's poverty. We're slaves of poverty. And many people listening to me this morning or afternoon, whatever time it is you listen to me, many people listening to me now are slaves of poverty. And because they're slaves of poverty, they just want to own. Whatever you do, you seek to own. Let me tell you, when you are freed from poverty, you stop running after owning things. You begin managing well what you have, multiplying what you have, and being a blessing, and enjoying what you have while being a blessing. Oh, yes. Some of you men, your fathers in your homes, your children cannot see you. You are too busy chasing after money. You want to own more money, own more things. I've had men threatening their children, telling them, I either stay with you at home and then you don't have money to buy what you want, or I go home, I go out to work and then you have money. That's poverty mentality. And unfortunately, you are indoctrinating your children with the same devil of poverty. You're bathing them in the same bondage. You're bringing them to your bondage. That's unfortunate. You are a bad steward, not a good manager. You need to turn away from that. Give your children time. That's good management. It's a good steward. Right? And so stewardship is inspired by responsibility. I want to be a responsible man. I want to be a responsible father. I want to be a responsible manager. I want to be a responsible steward. I want to be a responsible preacher. I want to be a responsible worker. I want to be a responsible husband. I want to be a responsible wife. I want to be a responsible human being. So what do? You become faithful with what has been committed to you. And like I gave an example, in the Bible, Jesus talked of 5, 4, and 2, and 5, 2, and 1. The man was given 5, another 2, another 1, each according to their ability. The first 2 are faithful and they multiplied. Faithfulness always leads to multiplication. A faithful man will always enjoy the fruit of his labor. Glory to God. And I don't want you to think that I'm saying that it is wrong for one to have this or have that. What I'm saying is, when you have it, look at it as something belonging to God that has been entrusted to you by God, so that you can manage it well and use it to bring glory to God. Everything belongs to God. You belong to God, and everything belongs to God. Talking about a mindset shift here, a shift of mindset, a paradigm shift. That's what we need in our generation. This is not a small-time change. I dare say this will call actually for a cultural revolution. It's a complete paradigm shift where your attitude and relationship towards money and property completely changes. And you take yourself from the center and bring God back to the center. And then begin to look at this thing in the eye of God. What would God expect of me to do with this position? As a member of parliament, as a president, as a cabinet secretary, as a manager, as a sweeper, as a cleaner, as a driver, as a conductor, as a preacher, what does God expect of me in this position? How can I handle this position in a manner that glorifies God? How can I administrate it in a way that God will receive the praise? That is what stewardship is about, ladies and gentlemen. So this is not just some small-time talk we are having here. We're talking about a complete change of mindset and attitude. Stewardship, ladies and gentlemen, is inspired by responsibility. We need men and women who will arise and take responsibility wherever they are. We need responsible teachers, responsible workers, responsible fathers, responsible mothers. Oh yes, we need responsible mothers. You can't give birth to a child and then leave some girl to raise a child for you. Because you leave in the morning, you go to work, from work you go to class. This crave, and the craze that has been there in society, for some certificate in this, some doctorate, some master, some whatever this or that. It's not a question of really that we want to be, to add the value to the society. No, we are simply selfish. We're trying to see how we can position ourselves to own more and to get more. Consequence, we have lost our children. So these children wake up, they have the house help with them. You are not there. Monday to Sunday, because Saturday is when you have out with your friends. Sunday, some few churches, some few hours of some religious church activities, and then you go out with your children, so-called, but out there you have time with your friends, children on their own. We are losing family because of bad stewardship while you are going to school. So that's your life. Leave early in the morning to beat the traffic jam. Get out of class, go for some class, out of office, go for some class. No time for children. And I'm not against people studying. I believe in studying. I believe everyone needs to equip themselves in their area and their field of operation. Very necessary. But can you steward your time well? Be a good steward of time. Manage your time well. Remember, time belongs to God. Family belongs to God. If you don't want to take care of your husband and wife and children, then I beg you, don't get into family. Finish your studies first. But if you do, if you have to study and you have a family, then balance it. Know how to balance it. You come home from class, get to the house, and then you take your phone. It's time to catch up on social media. It's time for you to find out what has been happening on Twitter. It's time to find out what has been going on Facebook. It's time to find out on what is going on the demonically inspired TikTok, those late hours of the night. It's time to find out now what is happening out there. Your children are dozing off. They're sleeping. That's bad stewardship. You must give time to your wife. Can't come from office and then you take the newspaper. After newspaper, you watch the TV. That's news. After news, then you eat. After eating, a shower. After shower, you sleep. Your wife is left to sort out a few things, the children. Why marry her? Not a good steward. All you want is other men to know you own a woman for a wife. And you own some offspring there for children. We can't have that. We're going to have a change of attitude and mindset. We have to begin thinking as stewards and appreciate stewardship is a responsibility. Let's be responsible men and women in the society. Blessed be the name of the Lord. So the mindset of ownership is a work of the flesh. It seeks to dispossess and take control. The mindset of stewardship is a work of the Spirit. It seeks to advance God's agenda. That's in your Bible. Mindset of ownership is a work of the flesh. The mindset of stewardship is a work of the Spirit. In God's house, ladies and gentlemen, in God's house, in God's family, the principle is stewardship, not ownership. I dare say here today, as a leader of a spiritual house, as a father in a spiritual house, family, as an overseer over God's people, I don't own them. I can't and should not and ought not to think in terms of owning the people. We raise people for God. We are pointing them to God. We are equipping them for God. That wherever they are, we are equipping them so that wherever they are, they glorify God. We help them to identify the gifts, the talents, the abilities, the potentials in them, their God-given capacities and abilities. Why? That they can use the same to glorify God. So we don't own them. They belong to God. They belong to God. And every pastor should have that mindset. Every shepherd, apostle, prophet, whatever you are, that's the mindset of a servant of God. We don't own people. We don't own people. Unfortunately, even the people themselves love to be owned. In fact, people seek for someone who can own them. Why? Because people themselves don't want to be responsible. We don't like responsibility. So we want someone to own us, that they can be responsible for us and our mistakes. Come on, somebody. Take responsibility. Be responsible. You are a steward. You are a steward. So what is stewardship? Allow me to take a few minutes and just define this thing here. Stewardship. What is a steward? And let me just go back to Bible. The Hebrew word is al-bayit. Albeit means man over the house. Man over the house. Bayit is a house. Okay? So it was actually a word that was used in the family context. It was used to apply or talk of the man who was responsible over the household. It's like a servant who was left, was responsible of household matters, or responsible of children, finances, employees. Okay? The man who was responsible of household matters. That's bayit. So you can see its responsibility. Taking responsibility of household matters, of children, and so on and so forth. The Greek word is oikonomos, steward, oikonomos. Oikonomos simply means house distributor, or house manager, house overseer. Again, coming back to house, is family, localized. Okay? The other word, the same Greek, steward, is an interesting word there which means a domestic manager. The word epitropos, it means a guardian, a domestic manager. The word steward is very domestic. It's a domestic word. It has family in mind. It has a servant in mind. Actually, those of you who employ people to keep and tend your house, that's the word there. Albayit, oikonomos. One who is responsible over. Now, stewardship is the word oikonomia. Oikonomia in Greek. Oikonomia simply means administration or management. Okay? So stewardship has got to do with administration or management of a household or an estate. Okay? Actually, it talks of a management of an economy or a way of doing things. In English, stewardship means to supervise arrangements, to keep order, to manage another's property. Now, as you can see all through, in stewardship, there is no ownership. Because remember, it's a man over the house, another's house. It's a house manager, manager of another's house. It's a guardian of what belongs to another. It's an administrator or manager of an estate belonging to another. All right? It's to manage another's property. So what's a steward? A steward is one who is responsible to take care of. A steward is an agent, if I so use that word. It's a custodian. So a steward is not a man who owns, it's one who oversees. So the origin of the word steward, both in English and also in Greek, has to do with family. Thus, stewardship is in the context of family. Stewardship. So once you come to God, remember, God is Father. Adam was his son. What is that? Father, son, family. And so what does the Father expect from the Son? Stewardship. You can never understand stewardship if you don't understand sonship. You will never come to the place of stewardship if you don't come to the place of sonship. So ideally, in kingdom economy, stewardship is about exercising our God-given dominion over his creation as sons. Underscore that, as sons. All right? Stewardship is connected to your identity and the purpose of your creation. This is very important to understand. Stewardship is connected to your identity. Stewardship is connected to your purpose of existence, which is to glorify God. Stewardship is connected to every gift, talent, ability, resource that has been deposited within you by God. Stewardship is connected to everything committed to you, whether materially, socially, and intellectually. Stewardship is about responsibility and accountability. It's connected to identity. You can never understand stewardship well if you don't understand sonship. And so, for you to understand stewardship, you must have a right relationship with God. You must come to a place where Adam was before the fall, where God is your father and you are his son. Where you have such a personal and intimate relationship with God, and you suddenly know God as a father and you become his son. So if that doesn't take place in you, my friend, you will never understand stewardship. That's why I call us back the place of sonship. I call you back the place of intimate relationship with God. Because listen, your relationship with God has a direct impact on your stewardship. Your revelation of your relationship with God has a direct influence on your level of stewardship. Because the more you know Him, the more faithful you become. You understand that sonship is about faithfulness. The Bible says that Moses was faithful as a servant, but Jesus as a son. Faithful as a son. So a son is expected to be faithful. But you see, as a son, when this mindset does not become the premise, the platform from which judgments and decisions are made, you also begin, like everyone else, fighting with everyone else to compete. Listen. And I want to throw this question with us, this thought with you as I begin to wrap up this session. Listen, this is a word of caution to you. As long as you are governed by the desire and mindset to own, you will always be in debts. You will always affect relationships, and you will never find rest. I'm telling you. You will always be in debts. You will always affect relationships, and you will never find rest. Why? Because you cannot satisfy the desire to own. You will always want more. Always want more. So what happens? Because you always want more. Because you want what you see. Because everything you see you want. You want another pair of shoes. You want more. You want more. You want more. Because you want more. With the appetite to own inspiring your dreams and aspirations, you will always borrow to meet that need. You live beyond your life. You live beyond your means. Many people are living their lives beyond their means. Why? Because we want to own. We are looking for some validation. We are looking for satisfaction elsewhere. Listen, that appetite must be tamed in you. The worldly Babylonian system, which feeds the desire to own in man, will always have a solution for you to satisfy that desire. And what is that solution? That's why we have all these numerous apps in the phone. Loan apps and companies are all about, you getting some money to fund this unbridled desire in you to own. You want this? We can give you some money. You want this? We can give you some money. We want this? We can give you some loan. We have all these advertisements. You want it? We got you. They got you. Babylon got you. Why? Because you want to own. You're already living beyond your means. You're struggling. Right? So what happens? When you borrow from people, you cannot return to them. You don't have money to return. You borrowed, you can't return. So what do? You begin hiding. You do a business, you begin to shortchange your partner because you want to own something more. You are siphoning money from your investment with your partner behind your partner's back. Why would you do that? Because you want to own more. You borrow from your friend, from your colleague, from your neighbor, from your brother, from your sister, from your parents, and you can't pay back. Why? Because you want to own more. So what happens? You affect relationships. You strain relationships because of your desire to have more. You end up in debt. Let me tell you this. Debt is designed to trap you. Debt is designed to enslave you and take you deeper and deeper in its pit until you have no more confidence in God. You can't believe that God is able to help you now because you've gone deep and deep and deep and deep. You become a victim of the environment, a victim of all these loans apps popping all over in the phone. You now are a victim of the Babylonian financial system. You are under the illusion of quick and convenient solutions to your crisis. So you run to all these apps, them copper and all whatever else they are. Why do you go there? Think with me. It is never a fundamental need. It's more often than not a want. When it is a need, it is because the money that should have made that need, you spent it on a want. When Paul was blessing the Philippians church, he did not say to them that my God shall supply to all your wants. No, it is my God shall supply to all your needs. Praise the name of the Lord. I know you would tell me the Bible says that delight yourself in the Lord and he shall fulfill the desires of your heart. Read it in its context. Delight yourself in the Lord. Find pleasure in him, in doing his will, in working with him. When he becomes your pleasure, then your will is aligned to his will. Your desires, rather, are aligned to his will. When your desires are aligned to his will, he shall fulfill every of those desires because it's aligned to his will. You don't just wake up in the morning with your selfish desires and say, my God will delight. No, no, no. Delighting yourself in the Lord is not singing one song on Sunday and then expect God to meet your needs on Monday. That's what we think. 2 hours of worship and then we have God meeting. No, 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 no. It's a life that you are living to worship God. Delighting yourself in the Lord, you're living a life that worships God. That is what stewardship is about. It's something that brothers and sisters you've got to think about. It's something you've got to give thought about. Do you want to take the path of ownership or the path of stewardship? Let's debate more on these matters as we keep looking at the scriptures and find out God's design for life, which is God's way for us, so that you and I can finally live the fullness of life where our lives glorify God in all that we do. Well, I commend you to God and to the word of his grace, which is able to build you up and give you an inheritance among the sanctified. Till next time, God bless you.